Hey there, I'm Patrick Franco, and we're going to look at pigeon pose. And this version of pigeon pose is a forward fold. Pigeon stretches the inner groins and inner thighs, the psoas muscle and the other hip flexors, as well as the glutes and the low back. It also strengthens, even though it's more focused on the stretching component than the strengthening component, it does help strengthen the hip stabilizing muscles, as well as some spinal stabilizing muscles and abdominal muscles. Let's go ahead and take a look at this pose now. So we're going to start on our hands and knees. Once you start here, we can take one knee and shin forward. And the idea is to bring the knee behind the wrist and that corresponding ankle as best as you can towards the opposite wrist. Now, you might hear sometimes to bring it parallel to the front of the mat, but the truth is that is highly unlikely for most students. The idea is that you want to bring the shin, the top of the ankle and foot onto the mat so that you have the ability to stabilize your pelvis and lengthen your spine at the same time. Once you have that going, you can start to extend your opposite leg backwards. And by doing so, it's going to move my pelvis back as well. Once that happens, I'm going to uncurl my toes and let the top of my back ankle and foot also rest down. So the idea is that my pelvis and my back leg are moving towards my back foot. Once I get that, now I can take my spine and my head in the opposite direction. So I'm trying to keep my pelvis and back leg extending back. And now I'm going to walk my arms forward, 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 allowing my abdomen, my chest, my throat, and my head to extend. Once I get here, there's a couple positions for the arms, but I do like to rest my forehead on my hands because this connection of my forehead to my hands just helps my nervous system relax. And so once I'm here, I'm pulling this outer hip back, which opens up the glutes and the piriformis and the inner thigh, as well as the back leg. And then I'm lengthening the sides of my trunk and opening up the whole back as I let my head relax. The idea is to also have both sides of your pelvis level. So you shouldn't be tilted towards that bent leg side. It should be the right and the left side are as level as possible. One of the most common mistakes that happens in this pose is that most students don't have the ability to allow their pelvis to remain in a neutral position because they don't have the flexibility yet in the glutes or the inner thighs of that front bent leg. And so they do this pose and their pelvis is off balance, and then they're not really lengthening equally the sides of their trunk, their spine, and their abdominal muscles. So one great thing that we can use in this pose is a little bit of support underneath the outer hip of the bent leg. And you have many choices. You can use a block, a blanket, or a bolster. Now, if you use a block is hard and fixed. It's probably like my least preferable choice in this pose, but sometimes you have to use what's available to you. I typically prefer a blanket because a blanket, you can either build it up or lower it down, and it also has some softness. If you're using a bolster, that's also a great option because it is soft, but it's pretty much a fixed height. So I'm going to show you with a blanket and where this blanket will go if you're using one for your outer hip. So I'm going to fold it up. I folded it up in a third, which is a nice fold for most of us. And when I step my leg forward now, again, knee to the left wrist, corresponding ankle as best as I can to the opposite wrist. The space between the outer buttocks and the floor is where you will place that support, whether it's the block, the bolster, or the blanket. And then when you move your leg back, the opposite leg, your buttocks doesn't have to come down to the floor. Now it's supported. And you can see that here with the blanket underneath my outer hip. One other great option is, if it's challenging for you to bring your head or chest all the way to the floor, is that you can also support yourself with a block for your head. And I'll do that now. So as I go forward, instead of bringing my head all the way to the floor, I have this wonderful block in which I can rest my head down. And then all the same principles apply. My hips move back, my back leg extends back, the sides of my trunk extend forward, but because I have the blanket under my hips are level, and because I have the block under my head, my spine can extend without collapsing. There we have it. Reclining pigeon pose. Excellent pose you'll see towards the end of the class during the cool down. And it opens up the hips, the inner groins, the glute muscles, and it's nourishing and quieting for the nervous system. We'll see you in the next pose.